Well, as you saw there, they've been released at the Simbonga Game Farm Sanctuary. It's between Gqeberha and Jeffreys Bay. And Lionel de Lange, the founder of WOW, joins us to tell us a little bit more about how they're doing and what the future looks like for them. Good evening, Lionel, and welcome. Certainly if we had to animate their relocation to that venue, certainly a type of family reunion we can imagine. They've now been placed in your Big Cat Sanctuary, but talk us through how the journey actually began, just the logistics and the intricacies of actually being aware of their plight and then bringing them here.
Hi, well, thanks very much for having us on to help us spread the word of what's really happening over in Ukraine. So this story, with Mir and Simba, started back in March, just after the start of the war. I was actually in Ukraine rescuing a bear marsha that I was taking out of Ukraine into Romania to a bear sanctuary there. While I was there at the facility, I found a lion in a really horrible enclosure, living in its own feces and leftover food. And I asked the owner, what you're going to do with this cat? And he said, if no one takes it within the next couple of weeks, I'm just going to shoot it. And he's that type of person. Just having an animal of that sort and a bear of that sort was, a status symbol for him. And now he didn't need the animal. It wasn't making him money, so he didn't want it any longer. So I said to him, hold on a second, I'm taking this bear, give me a couple of days. And we agreed that he wouldn't kill the animal, the lion, until I got back. So I shot out of Ukraine, dropped the bear off at the bear sanctuary, went back to the company that were kind enough to let me rent a vehicle to take it into a war zone, and turned around and back and went and fetched Mir. Mir didn't have a name at the time. He was nameless. So I called him Mir, which actually means peace in Ukrainian. We picked Mir up, and I still didn't have a home. I didn't know, what am I going to do? I just couldn't leave this cat behind. So we made quite a few phone calls while I was on the road. And I teamed up with a lady who has a very reputable sanctuary and animal shelter in Romania. And I called her about where could I keep Mir until we got the documentation to send him to South Africa. She said, well, I'll gladly help you, but I've also got a problem. I have this lion, Simba, that was rescued also from the war zone. Maybe we can work together. So we did, and then I offered Simba a home, and that's where it started. And then they were in Ukraine in Romania for 6 months while we prepared the permits and documentation and found sponsors and got flights to get them to Simbonga. It was quite a feat, because at the same time we were also relocating 9 lions that I'd rescued out of Odessa, also during the war. And we were flying there. They all flew together. We flew 11 lions out of Romania, all 11 Ukrainian lions out of Romania on the 27th. 9 of them went to a sanctuary in the States, and Mir and Simba came to us. We couldn't take Mir and Simba. We couldn't take the 9 lions because our facility was not geared up for that many, and we wanted to keep the pride together, which is very important when it comes to those animals. So there we are. We got them home. It was a very long journey for them. Nearly 3 days of traveling in a steel box. If you saw some of the pictures, they're a little bit banged up from being locked up in a box. And Lionel, now they're on the mend.
Yeah. At the risk of being accused of being overly sentimental, it's quite an emotional reaction, at least that I'm having, and I'm sure a lot of people who love animals, and animals are so helpless in situations like that. Of course, the human impact has been so stark and catastrophic. When you think about animals as well, often, the last to be thought of in situations like that. It's really so beautiful what you've been able to do with and for them, and to see them in a place where they can have, the range to walk and to move is a really wonderful thing. But talk to us about their rehabilitation and care, and what's involved in making sure that they do recover. I imagine that they also experience some level of trauma.
Oh, absolutely. So Simba came out of a really, really bad area. There was constant shelling and a lot of fighting. So he went through a lot of not physical trauma, but it would be physical, but also emotional stuff, you know. And then he was the last animal to be evacuated from the zoo that he was in. So he was left all alone. And now he's out and we've got him. We had him in, we saw him in the temporary holding facility in Romania, and we thought he was going to be a really tough cat. You know, he was like aggressive and he was in everybody's faces and he was into his food. And then when we got to South Africa, he had completely changed. So I think, you know, living in a small cage his whole life and then being surrounded by bombing and shelling and then put into a small box in the back of a truck and then hauled across the country and then into another small cage and then back into it's got to, and it does affect him in a big way. So he's taken a lot longer to adjust. He's very quiet and very stressful about, you know, his new companions because he's never had any other lions or anything too close to him. Where Med, on the other hand, we thought he was going to be the big softie, and he adapted immediately and really, really doing well. But that's just the psychological and emotional stuff. Now, we don't know if there are any underlying problems with them. Every single one of the cats that we have at our facility are all on food supplements. They've all had blood tests. We've had to put them on various medications because of vitamin deficiencies, and the list just goes on. And the same thing we know will be with Mir and Simba, but we can't sedate them just yet because they've just been sedated to be loaded, so it's not safe. So in about 6 weeks, we'll knock them down, draw bloods, check what's needed, see if there are any underlying issues, and then we just put them on the mend and we give them all the care they need, all the fresh food, fresh meat, lots of enrichment. You can see the enclosures are huge. They've got lots to do. You wouldn't say it with the lions looking at us right through the fence, but they just love us being around them, you know. They get used to us being there, and Lauren and Keegan at the sanctuary form, because I do a lot of traveling, doing various rescues, but they're hands-on with the cats all the time. It's going to be a long process, you know, but we're in it for the long haul because these cats live up to 22, 23 years old. So it's not a, you know,
it's certainly not a temporary relationship. But Lionel, thank you so much for sharing the work of your team. It sounds like a huge cost. We didn't really get to talk about that, but it also sounds like you need the collaboration and the support of a lot of partners to make something like this happen. And we'll be watching how those cats recover, Mir and Simba, over the next couple of months. Lionel de Lange is the founder of WOW.